The following is a conversation with William Cook. William Cook is a digital marketer, but not just any digital marketer. He is a community builder and personally the head of a community with over 80,000 members. Will helps companies build communities online of their most loyal customers. Tune in to hear more about his story. All right, so Will, what is community building?
So community building, it really comes, there's really, many different types of community building. It all kind of centers around this one idea of what we call community. And I'll kind of delve into what that, really means in a minute. But community building is about bringing kind of people together to discuss a particular topic or around a particular interest. So a lot of people, they'll say, how is this different from building like an Instagram account or a Twitter following or, a YouTube channel? And
Mm-hmm.
the metaphor I or the similarity always uses, it's kind of like it's kind of like, are you building an audience to talk at, or are you building a place where people can talk, you talk with? And that's
Mm-hmm.
really what community is. It's about a place where people come together to talk with each other, rather than, you push out all the content and they comment on it, like it, etc., etc. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, community building is about, nurturing those relationships, bringing your top fans together to, discuss ideas, be, kind of ambassadors as well, and really kind of generate conversation, generate content around, whatever you do. And, community building, there's many, many platforms for it. There's many different types of communities as well, You have
Mm-hmm.
places like Reddit, which are kind of more thread-based, where then you have tools like Slack and Discord, which are much more kind of real-time communication-based. It's really, there are many different types of community building, and, it's really up to whatever works best for each. Each community is different. I like to say it's not like you can just make one single kind of game plan and use it for every single community. Every community is going to have different people. Every community has different ideas, targets. So yeah, it's very important. Every community is unique when it comes to community building.
That's awesome to hear. I know community building in my head is a very low-key hotspot in the industry, especially. You're seeing, a lot of these platforms such as Reddit's been around for quite a while now. Don't know exactly when it was founded, but know it's kind of a mainstream. There's one community that I think was founded not too many years ago. I could be mistaken, but let me know if you've heard of it. Have you ever heard of Fishbowl by any chance?
No, I don't think so.
So Fishbowl, if you'll find this interesting, it's almost like Reddit, but for corporate America. So when you think of corporate America, you think of all these suit and ties, everyone being really politically correct. But Fishbowl is essentially, the Reddit version of that, where everyone's really kind of expressing their frustrations or their transparency regarding their workplaces or things that they like. So definitely a really interesting area. And I think it's cool to look at things from the community aspect when someone doesn't have to worry about repercussions of what they're saying or can really just be fully transparent and honest. And I don't think we'll ever fully get that in the workplace, or else I think nobody would have a workplace.
Yeah.
But really interesting stuff going on there. So that's will be insightful to see where that goes in the next few years. But other than community building, you got interested in business at a really young age and kind of have been at it for a while now. And
Yeah.
you're up to a lot of exciting projects. But how would you say you got interested in it so young and have been able to stay the pace for so many years?
Um, I guess I've always been a very kind of, I haven't been a, a mainstream kind of person. I've
It's all
always been
good.
kind of into building new things, testing out new things, kind of experimenting on my own. I've always had quite an interest in, technology and kind of playing around with it. I was lucky my parents were very, let me be very independent, so it kind of helped kind of let me do whatever I wanted. And
Hmm.
I just, there was just this spark in me. I wanted to build things. I wanted to, do cool things and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it all started. And there from there, I kind of, tried many different things. And then when I like in 2017, I came across, Discord, with some friends. Then from there, that's kind of where things started. So yeah, I mean, you know, I did start very early on. I like to, think it was a good chance to learn as well. Especially when, nothing's if you go wrong, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, like I just, just had a lot of chance, a lot of time to play around. School marks
Hmm.
could have been better, I would say, but
Same here.
um, you know, it was really what I wanted to do, just test out new things, build things, see, see what works, see what doesn't work, experiment with, technology and what it can do. Because like it was just, it was just a spark in me, and I'm kind of happy I had that spark because, it's led me to where I am today, and
Hmm.
without it, who knows what I'd be up to. Um, so yeah,
Do you ever think, or do you ever think that there's the possibility that you'll be a kind of suit and tie employee working in corporate America, or does the thought of that just kind of make you sick, and you just make you want to stick to what you're doing that much more?
this is where it's kind of funny, right? Because I really had no idea what I wanted to like kind of go into the
Hmm.
future. Like, community is definitely an important part, but like, you know, I presume I'm gonna have like multiple careers or something like that in the future. I've really got no clue what I want to do. I've been, you know, I have a big interest in social justice, so kind of in kind of legal fields of human right law and things like that. I think
Hmm.
that's something I might go into. But like, I'm not too fond of working for another like corporation, at least in like, kind of a generalist role. Like
Hmm.
I'm happy to work in a community role that's, or something like that. But I don't really, things like general marketing, general kind of business don't really stand out to me as much. I
Hmm.
much kind of more want to work in something specific. Like, I have an interest in marketing, but I hate kind of sales, um, talking to customers, kind of that. I'm much more into, marketing strategy and, you know, building up processes and things like that. So
That's fair.
I don't think I'd be like, I don't think I'm all that much. I'm too suited for working for a corporation.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, we'll see where things go. We'll see what comes up. I do
Fair.
enjoy, freelancing because it gives me lots, you got like casual work as well. 'Cause it gives me the opportunity to do many different things, and
Hmm.
I can kind of pick my own schedule and pick what I want to do. Keeps things interesting.
Got it. Awesome. So if you weren't a community builder, you think you'd probably be a human rights lawyer or something in the legal field
Yeah,
surrounding a sort
something
of
like that.
justice. Got it. Awesome. Also, a really exciting area, and I'm sure we'll see where your career goes, but doing cool things now. But I think working as a community builder, you have a good understanding of how people think. So maybe you can have some kind of political science in your head to know
Yeah,
how to approach social justice issues. But right now we're still kind of you seem to be really focused on the community aspect. Just another curious question. Do you ever see yourself just building a whole community platform like a Reddit or a Fishbowl, or just focus more on the communities for now?
good question. I haven't thought about this too deeply. I think the issue with trying to build a new community platform is that there are only so many different ways you can kind of structure a community,
Hmm.
and there are so many tools already that exist for community building. I just kind of think, you know, there's not a whole lot of market room to be kind of building something like that.
Hmm.
That's going to be unique in that way. Like for me, I really like those kind of real time communities where you can talk with people in real time, so places like Discord and
Hmm.
Slack. And I think, the benefits of using platforms like that is that people have used them before. So, if I start a Discord community, for example, I have millions of people who use Discord that, can join without any issues.
Hmm.
Whereas if I was to build my own kind of community platform, you know, it costs a
Tough.
lot of money. Yeah, like it'd just you'd be starting at a tough place because, so many other people use other community platforms. It's so difficult to get people to come across. Like, there are so many Discord competitors, like Gilded and like all these open source ones. But the thing is, you know, Discord's just too good to outcompete. Like people are just like, I have all my friends on this platform. I have all my communities on this platform. I don't want to kind of shift everything to another platform because I lose all that. So I think, people are once they pick a kind of platform, they're very embedded in it.
Hmm.
So I don't, yeah, I guess like the one complaint I have about community platforms is that like the lack of kind of ownership of your actual community. Like
Hmm.
at the end of the day, the community platforms owns the community. They can kind of do whatever they want with it. Like I'd appreciate if there was we had more kind of say or rights when it comes to deciding what goes and what doesn't go in that community and how it functions. Because Discord could come along one day and be like, we don't like this anymore. Um, deleted kind of thing. So that's always been something in the back of our mind.
Got
Yeah,
it. Interesting. So it sounds like it would be tough to compete with them because the Discords of the world and the Reddits of the world already have a lot of brand equity. So it would be tough to, one, the coding behind or kind of the software behind this, I'm sure is no simple task, but also, the marketing and the business stuff is a hassle itself. So might as well just take advantage of the platforms that are out there and kind of build subgroups or, yeah, sub Reddits, if that's a word, and kind of try to grow
yeah.
through that. Okay. Awesome. I'm sure you worked with a lot of companies that try to kind of build these communities, but a lot of times companies may struggle to just grow or have a customer base in general. So they may look at like that community aspect as their base fans and ultimately try to hopefully exponentially grow on that. But from your experience working with a lot of these companies, how would you say they go about really building these communities from the ground up?
Generally, we work with a lot of startups, so a lot of the time, actually, it'll be kind of pre-product launch stage. At the pre-product launch stage, so you'll have, companies who are building a product and they kind of, it's a bit like you build your email newsletter list on the side of your teas, kind of what you're building. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
build a community around it instead. And what they do is, they kind of, they'll make the community do all that stuff. Then they'll be like, okay, we want to grow it now. So they come to people like me and we kind of do all that stuff. And over time, people will come. It's a bit like kind of going to a website. People,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit like a kind of lead generation as well. People come to the community, they check it out. If they're interested, they'll stay. If they're not, they'll leave. You try to get them to talk, kind of thing. So really, I think businesses, it's great because with a community, you can kind of reach out to people individually and get feedback like that. I know, like with platforms like Polywork and stuff, you might have heard of Polywork. They have like a Slack group for like all their early supporters, and like I'm part of that. It's a great way, just to give people like let them know of any issues with because they just recently launched a new website builder. And
Mm-hmm.
any issues with their new website builder, you can get access to the CEO right there. Um, but I think as well, like a lot of kind of businesses, they come into this expecting it to grow the same thing like an email newsletter. You're not going to get 5,000 people in a week kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna unless you're like big AI
Amazon or
and
Apple for
something
sure.
like that. Like I think it's I feel that the let me just look up what's called
Sure.
the uh maybe I'm not in the community anymore. It was this AI like image creator thing, but basically they like kind of built their entire thing around Discord, and
Mm-hmm.
they have like 1 million members now or something. Just
It's
people
incredible.
using just because they've built their product like on a website, but they make you use it on their Discord community. So that's kind of how they've done it.
Got
So
it.
that's one of many ways companies take advantage of community, and it allows them to kind of tease new things and find out who's going to be their early supporters and kind of get feedback and things like that much easier. Because I think with the community you get a much more kind of interactivity rate than with an email newsletter or a website. Just
Mm-hmm.
because people are generally checking these platforms regularly, and they can send a message without any issues.
Got it. Interesting. So it's a good way to kind of feel safe early on for a lot of these companies to really test out if these companies or if their products are really going to be or have any kind of proof of concept in a way. I don't know all the buzzwords or the terms, but I think you see what I'm getting at. So then
Yeah,
once you see that you have a group of early supporters, that's when you can kind of tease something on one of these communities and make them sign up to use it. And it almost like creates a pent up demand for such a thing. Got it. Awesome. So, the main way I know that you help a lot of these companies is through your own company, AWS. So, can you speak a little bit about what that company does?
yeah. So AYS, it's
Oh, AYS. Sorry about that.
yeah, advertiser service. So originally we started off as a kind of just more of a place like what we tend to call a community community. So it's a community for community managers,
Hmm.
primarily on Discord. So we kind of started off as a place people could share their own projects, talk with other community owners, kind of just do things like that, get advice. And over the years, because we were kind of one of the first ones, we had that kind of market edge. And now, we've been able to kind of grow it over the years, build new tools for communities. We do a lot of content, interviewing people, and really like we've kind of built it into this. There's kind of two prongs. We have our community side, which is like the community itself, and then we kind of have our more corporate side, which is looking after our the customers who we look after.
Hmm.
So we kind of in a way, it's a bit like, how with a lot of tools you'll have like, your standard pricing, then you kind of have your enterprise pricing. So we have, kind of more do-it-yourself tiers when it comes to growing communities. So we'll have a lot of kind of, do-it-yourself tools that we've put together. And
Hmm.
then our more corporate front, which starts we do our enterprise program. So really, AYS, a lot of our experiences come from building out, like at least for me, it's come from building the community ourselves. A lot of trial and error, a lot of, working what works and what doesn't work because, every community is unique. Every community is different. There are many things in community you have to be much more careful of, such as, kind of, you gotta be much more attentive to what members of your community want than if you're
Hmm.
building a product per se. Um, because, they can leave and it's very easy to leave the community. Um, especially if you're not invested too heavily in it.
Hmm.
So for the most part, most of the people we work with, you know, they're smaller, a lot of individuals as well, building their own community. And we have so much free stuff in our community that they take advantage of all that. And then we have the paid customers who kind of support all that. And we
Hmm.
provide our expertise too in more of a consulting manner. We've done a lot
Hmm.
of work with kind of, especially we kind of we tend to follow the trend of like what's hot in the internet. So originally, started off as crypto kind of exchanges, then we went to NFTs, and now we're
Hmm.
kind of moving more into AI. So we kind of got a lot of that because really Discord is one of those platforms where young people tend to hang out, and it's
Hmm.
generally going to be kind of that more tech savvy user using a platform like Discord. So it's a great kind of platform to start off on, especially if you're building a web first product.
Got it. Okay, interesting to hear. It sounded, before you were like from crypto to NFTs to now AI, following the national news story. But one benefit is that you have proof of demand about that. I mean, they're talking about that stuff every day, so I'm sure there's pent up community demand in that. And actually, I'm happy you brought up AI because one of the things that I wanted to get into was AI and community building. And curious to hear your perspective of how you think like the impact of the rise in AI will have on communities getting built. The no pun intended, the discord between that
Yeah,
gets discussed in communities. So I would love to know what you think the future of that looks like.
yeah. So I am a, I'm a fan of AI. I think it has, great, great potential in terms of, kind of helping the human race. I think in terms of community as well, we've even, we've incorporated into our community Discord's building new tools that use AI, such as what they call chat summaries. So it basically the AI summarizes, a conversation, so people who don't want to read through the entire conversation can see what happened, which I think is a
Mm-hmm.
great tool. I think one of the biggest kind of ways it's going to help out is in terms of moderation in community, because moderation for the most part, you know, code can't tell if this is bad or this is not bad. You really kind of need a human all the time to work out, is this allowed in this context or not? Like, sure, you can use a bot to stop spam because you can
Mm-hmm.
program it if they send this number of messages in this amount of time, delete it or something. But when it comes to more like kind of, the content people are actually sending it, that's where it gets a lot harder to kind of look after. And that's, where you have to have humans step in. So I think AI is going to help greatly in terms of moderation just
Mm-hmm.
because, it's going to be able to step in instead of humans. It'll be quicker um, than a human. So, you know, poor content isn't there for as long. And it kind of takes, the load off the humans as well, who can focus on kind of more, you know, rewarding work per se, than, going through messages, going through reports kind of thing, looking at those things. So I think it has a massive potential in moderation. In iOS as well, we use it as kind of we use it as kind of like a help desk tool. So we have a bunch of kind of like general growth questions. So people, come to our growth questions, business questions, platform questions, moderation questions, channels, they'll
Mm-hmm.
ask a question. And, we have a bot that um, it's basically kind of scraped our entire community, scraped all our help articles, our blog, all that stuff. And when, people ask questions, it replies with, different advice, different tips, links, and from there people can upvote, downvote, and they can learn from that. So that's definitely been helpful in like kind of
Hmm.
reducing the amount of work we've had to do in giving people advice, because a lot of the time people just ask the same questions over and over again. So it can be great as well, just
Hmm.
to be able to give that general advice, but in a much quicker format with a bot. And people can also tailor the question to their specific community, and the bot can kind of change its answer depending on that. So I think it has great potential in community building. I don't think it's going to be as good for building so like kind of the building of actual communities.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of like the structure, things like that. But I think in terms of kind of maintenance, it's definitely going to be helpful.
Got it. Okay, interesting. So certainly some potential drawbacks, but should be really helpful in community building and automating a lot of the things and letting people,
Yeah,
really filter through what's most important to them. Got it. Awesome. So, working with these companies and kind of helping to build these communities, I'm sure you've had your fair share of stories. Have you had any interesting stories that stand out, or kind of the biggest story that you found the most challenging working with a client?
I think a lot no shame to clients, but a lot of them they'll come to a platform like Discord or like community in general, not really having too much of an understanding of how it works. That's fair enough. It's a new and upcoming field. A lot of the time, people will think it like lead gen. And I think, the issue is people tend to have kind of unrealistic expectations about communities. They expect, 90% of people who join the community to talk every day in it, whereas that's really just not realistic at all. Like, you have your top 5% of people speaking every day, even like less as the community gets bigger. But I think really, it's just kind of like a bit of a cultural shock sometimes. It's not like, you know, you get someone and you're going to retain them forever. Like, there is a massive churn rate when it comes to communities, primarily because, it takes effort from a community, from a member's point of view, to be part of a community. They've got to interact in it, they've got to check it, um, reply to messages, things like that. It takes, it's a lot of effort. So people who do stay in communities tend to actually care about them and care what's going to happen. So I think, you know, the main takeaway for businesses, I think, is, while you won't have as many people, it's going to cost more to retain each user. They're going to be worth a lot more in the long run, rather than someone who's subscribed to your email newsletter. Um,
Mhm.
that's
Got
I
it.
don't really have any specific stories about that, but more so just you know
Themes.
set expectations early.
Okay, fair enough. Do you think that most people go on these platforms to, just look at what other people are saying, or a lot of people actually like participating in a lot of these discords or, threads?
Yeah, there's been a lot of kind of research into this as well by like scientific research into this in terms of what people actually do in communities and why they're there. I think especially like kind of before COVID, they weren't actually too much of a thing. They were kind of a place people hung out. But I think, especially during the place times like COVID, when there were lockdowns, people couldn't hang out in person. Online communities, even if they were just like, just a group of friends, we call that a private online community. They're still communities, and that's how people hung out. That's, people, chatted over Discord, chatted over Reddit, that kind of thing. That's how they stayed in touch. I think, especially now, it's a great way because there's just, if you have a very specific niche you're interested in, it's a great way to meet people because, you can meet anyone from over the world, whereas kind of in person you're stuck to whoever's in your like local geographical area. So I think, while there are people who just use online communities just to get information stuff, I think there are a lot of people as well who kind of use it as, a place to socialize, a place to hang out with other people, a place to kind of build up who they are. It's a lot of people don't fit in their like local area, so they come to a place like community building or something like that, and they come hang out here. Like where I live, at least there's barely any kind of community building industry, at least in
Mhm.
Australia. It's mostly US. It's places like companies like CMX. That's all kind of US based. So you know I just participate in the online communities, and I can chat with people from mostly from America and stuff like that. Talk about community building because it's not a big industry here. So I think that's a great benefit of it. So I
Got it.
think a lot of people are doing it to build that social connection as well.
So kind of a little bit of both. A lot of people are interested
Yeah,
in learning more about, what the community is talking about, but also just for those who have trouble fitting in, there's, if there might not be someone at your local gym, there's probably someone, chances are, on the other side of the world that has similar interests. So a way to connect through that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Awesome. So, as a community builder, do you have any favorite books that you've ever read? Or, they don't have to do with community building, but, figure there might be a correlation there.
Oh, yeah, there are not a lot of good community books, I will say. Um, oh, look, personally, I like biographies, but they don't relate too much to community. But I think one of my favorite books, I think that really kind of opened my eyes to the core essentials of marketing was it's called Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Subi. It's
Hmm.
essentially kind of like a multi-step process in terms of how you go from you know building a product to selling it. And I think it's just kind of really insightful. It really kind of just lays out the steps of building that kind of cycle from going from A to Z. I think that's kind of really helpful. I think as well, I've read Obama's I forget the name of it now, but his recent book, and I think that's really insightful. Like talking about his experience, building, and looking after a country in a way. I think that's kind of similar to looking after a community, and it
Hmm.
really kind of shows, the leadership kind of required to do that. I think that's always going to be very, very important in a
Good.
in society. So yeah, I think those are really kind of the two main books I think that are good. There's all those other ones like, Atomic Habits, those ones that are, uh, give you advice on building habits and things like that. I think they're helpful in
Hmm.
moderation. Yeah, I think but leaders' biographies, I think they're the ones I really enjoy the most. Just hearing their insights about what they did because it's very similar to building a community. Building a community, I think. Um, yeah.
I think I would agree with you there too. I think, I mean, books are general. A lot of people have different tastes in books, but biographies in general, biographies of big leaders, you really get to look behind the scenes and see the kind of specific steps they took. And, on the outside, it seems like everything was so perfect. They were just these, very executive presence individuals, but behind the scenes, a lot could have went wrong or a lot went wrong, and somehow, some way they came back. So, definitely an interesting dynamic there, and would agree with you on that. There was a kind of a biography. I don't know if it was a biography so much as a memoir that I read about. There's a movie called War Dogs that came out a number of years ago about this guy Ephraim DeVroli, who was a gun runner. By the way, Ephraim, if you're ever listening, we'd love to have you on the show, but I doubt he's listening. But his was a story about basically how he was like a pothead from Miami and then ended up running, gun running for the U.S. Army and became a multimillionaire, just like really in this weapons trade. So, really, really interesting book. More of I'd say, a memoir than more specific, third person biography. But yeah, no, it was a great, great book. I think maybe you could probably classify a memoir as like a self written biography, something like that. I don't know how the classifications roll, but nonetheless, a book about someone who is a leader that I think a lot of people would enjoy. But definitely agree with you on that point. And I think one of the things you brought up early on in the show was you live in Australia. Just how's it like living in Australia? You like it there? Would ever move to America or?
Um, Look, I like it here a lot. I uh, things are pretty. I've considered about, maybe if community building becomes like much bigger thing, maybe I move to America. If if it was in my interest, I guess. Haven't
Mhm.
thought about it too much though. Like, you know, I like Australia. I think we have a lot of good things here. Um,
Good weather.
well, it's all right. It's all right. It's well down in Melbourne. It's not as good because
There.
we're at the very bottom, so it's
Hmm.
freezing in winter. But I
Oh.
think I've always I like look I have traveled to America before, so I like to travel and do business. I don't think I want to live there for long term though. Um, because I've got a lot happening here as well.
Hmm.
But I think with the power of internet as well, I'm able to talk to people so easily. But the one downside I think is that a lot of the events it's always 1 a.m. for me, so I can never attend them. That's probably
Hmm.
one of the big things things about not being living in Australia that we're in a There's not many people here, and that means there's not a lot happening here as well.
Fair. What time is it in Australia right now? Like 8 a.m. or 7 a.m.?
It's 9:40 a.m. right now.
9:40 a.m. So Australia is what, 12? Okay, 14 hours ahead of us, or 8 hours behind. I'll just go 14 hours ahead.
Before ahead, yeah,
14 ahead. Okay, interesting. It's the so right now is the 27th in
7th,
Australia,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Got it. Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, no, because I could see them bright and sunny there. It's the evening here on the East Coast, but like you said,
yeah.
thankfully technology lets us do this kind of thing. But really, really great to hear about that, and it'll be interesting to see, where your story takes you. Just last few things I wanted to get into. What's a fun fact you would say about you that not a lot of people know?
Oh, this is um fun fact.
Could be your favorite food, favorite color, something wacky.
I love winter. Winter's my favorite
Interesting.
season.
Wow. Would you care to elaborate a bit on why winter? A lot of people are probably like, "How do you love winter? It's freezing. It's this."
Oh, I just can't stand the heat, I think. Like,
Fair.
I just don't do well with heat. But like at the same time, winter's pretty miserable. It's like spring and autumn, I think, are good times because it's not too warm, it's not too cold.
70s
Um,
are great.
yeah. Like if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick winter over summer just because at least in winter, if it's too cold, I can warm up. Whereas in summer, it's a
Hmm.
bit harder to cool down.
Yep, we're never exactly where we want to be. If only it could be, like 70, 75 degrees outside year round,
Yeah,
that would be ideal. But,
exactly.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's not how the climate works. But great to hear that. You've mentioned a lot about how you've been able to, really be involved in businesses, and really happy to be involved in community building, and hopefully you get to keep growing your clientele and keep doing this work that you want to do. But outside of kind of your primary career, what would you say brings you the most happiness?
Oh, I say university. That's pretty
Yeah, you
fun.
could say university is fine.
Um,
Some people love university, some people don't love
yeah, I
university.
love
Love
I love it.
university.
I have a great social circle there. Always fun to
Hmm.
hang out with. I do I work at university as well, so it's I love the vibe. It's great. It's good.
Got
And I
Okay.
like Netflix as well. Netflix is pretty good.
Yeah, Netflix is great. Any fun shows that are coming out that you like watching, or shows that you've watched?
On Disney Plus. I'm watching the new Ahsoka series.
Hmm.
Um, though on Netflix, I just finished The Blacklist, which that was I think got to 10 seasons. I watched every episode of that.
Hmm.
Sad it's over now, but it was a great series. I thought, you
Yeah,
know,
Blacklist was good. I think I maybe watched the first 6 or 7 seasons, and then the last
yeah,
seasons I just kind of read the plots. But yeah,
yeah.
Blacklist, that
It's a
was an
very long
interesting.
story, but yeah, it was
It's a
good.
very long story.
Very
I
good.
won't spoil it too much, but
Yeah,
I was surprised when they killed off one of the main characters. I'll just say that the show took an
yeah,
interesting turn, to say the
yeah. It
least.
does. Yeah, it's kind of where
For sure.
everything gets a bit jumbled as well.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone's interested in the Blacklist, definitely check that out. It's a cool show, and definitely worth watching. So great to hear about that. On that note, well, you've shared, like I said earlier, you shared a lot of stuff about community building. Now we know some interesting fun facts about you. You like the Blacklist in school. Is there anything else that you want to share? Whether it's business advice, relationship advice, life advice. Final word is
Um,
yours.
yeah, I guess just keep trying. For me, it's just take every opportunity you can get. In a way, that's my
Mhm.
mantra. If something seems interesting, sign up. It kind of helps as well. When you're going for jobs and things like that. At least for me, being able to show all this other stuff I've been up to, kind of showing that kind of real world business experience as well is really helpful in, you know, showing people that I know what I'm doing for the most part. So I think that's, taking, keeping yourself engaged, keeping busy. Um, that's something I enjoy.
Got it. I think that's a great final word. And well, hopefully one day you can be known as the guy to advise on communities and how to build them. But
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing the insight, and it was awesome chatting, man.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's conversation with William Cook. If you enjoyed the episode, rate the show on Spotify, drop a comment on YouTube, and subscribe.